Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James. I do fountain pens, and I'm not letting you down. I got another one today. Not too long ago, we talked about a possible sandwich test. We were looking at a pen that was $15, $16, and my question was, would that be a better spent amount of money on, say, a Cat's Deli in Manhattan sandwich, or would you buy the pen? Today might be one of those kind of tests, but this one will not cost you anything like a pastrami sandwich at Katz. This is more along the price of, well, it's Thanksgiving, it's fall, and I think they're still selling them. Is this better or worse than, say, a pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks or a peppermint mocha? They're all about the same price, these fancy coffees and this pen. Which would do you better in the long run? This is the Jinhao 500, and it's a sturdy pen. It has some good weight to it. It's well made. This is actually a plastic sleeve, not a resin, but it is still, anyway, a good looking pen and maybe even a familiar design. Would you buy this? Answer this when this is over in the questions below. Would you buy this? Or would you buy the peppermint mocha? Or would you buy, same price, a Big Mac? I'm curious what your answer might be. But let's flip that camera and take a look at the Jinhao 500 fountain pen. All right, let's take a look at this Jinhao 5. Oh wait, I got the wrong pen. The Jinhao 500. There is a little bit of resemblance to my Pelican. Certainly if I put the Pelican closer to the camera than the Jinhao, you really start to see the resemblance, because this is really more a inspired by pen by the larger versions of that. However, there are some definite differences. Not big differences, but differences. Now, one is that you will notice that, as I said, this is just a two-dimensional plastic sleeve that goes over the brass barrel, whereas this is an actual resin with chatoyancy and depth and a 3D-ness that the Jinhao simply does not have. But there certainly are design characteristics. Let's just go over them very quickly. You have the gold-colored pieces. They are not gold on the Jinhao, but you have them. This is much lighter, as this is a resin pen instead of a brass pen. You notice that the end cap on the Jinhao, which is just a piece of plastic there, is very similar to the piston knob that is here on the Pelican. However, I will say, and I mentioned this in another review, I believe it was on the Scrix pen, that I like that this is more even with the trim than this is. I know they have a reason for that Pelican feels that they do that, but if I'm just going for what I like it to be much more smooth transition from that gold band into that resin. They both have that crown-shaped cap, which is not exclusive to Pelican. There are other companies besides them and Jinhao that had this, Monteverde and others. The clips are not anything alike. They're both gold-toned, or gold and gold-toned, but other than that, they really are not much alike. The Jinhao, the style of this is, interesting. They've got the 3 dots and these lines that come down and this teardrop at the end. And it doesn't really float my boat, but it doesn't offend me either. I do prefer the Pelican beak, but I'm sure there are people who look at that and think that's kind of a bit funny looking too. So, whatever floats your boat. Other than that, there really aren't similarities beyond those superficial things. At the top of that crown cap is just a simple black finial insert, very, very plain, and as I mentioned, this is just a plastic blind cap. And, actually it's not even a blind cap, because this is just there. It's not a cap, it's just there. So let's open this thing up, and this is just a press-on cap. And it was on there pretty well. It's not going to slip off, I will tell you that. As I mentioned, this is a brass pen. This is, however, a plastic grip section with a matte finish right here. And I find that comfortable. It's thick enough without being too thick. No problem finding a spot there that I can hold that is comfortable for my grip. Of course, your mileage will vary. Here is the nib. Let's take a look at that. And it is a Jinhao two-tone number 5, standard number 5 nib. This is a fine. Has their Chariot logo stamped into the nib along with some other decoration. I think it's a decent looking nib. I do think, sometimes people say, well, that would be a whole lot better if it just had a 6 instead of a 5. And some pens, when that's said, I go, whatever. However, I think for the dimensions of this pen, I would agree with those people. It looks good this way, but a 6, and Jinhao makes some nice 6 nibs. A 6 would have been awesome. Just broaden the diameter a little bit of that section to accommodate a 6, and I think you have an even better winner. And I think I might have mentioned that on the Jinhao, is that the 800 that had the wood barrel? I think I mentioned the same thing. But I think I noticed it more on this pen. So there's that. Standard plastic feed. Not much to speak of there. Nice trim pieces for the price range. And, very well put together. I will say that. This pen is a good, solid pen, and it does have weight, as I mentioned. If we open up that barrel, this is where you can see for sure. I say that. I'm not going to get the light down in there. I don't have an LED handy, but it's down there. It's metal down there. Okay, let's set that aside. We'll put it there so that I can accidentally knock it and flip it over there. In case you're wondering, in that mug, the tea, it's Thanksgiving, so we have tea that was typically drunk at the time. And especially later on, around 1776, they fought over some pu'er tea, and that's what that is. So it's that time of year. I drink tea more often in the fall, coffee all year long, all times of the day. It does come with a standard international Jinhao converter and takes international or Jinhao cartridges for those who prefer cartridges. This is, you will notice this section that the feed and nib are in is a plastic section, even though the rest of the pen really quite a sturdy metal thing. But like I said, well put together, fairly standard Jinhao fare, I think, for those of you who are familiar with their pens. And I would say that this would be along, if you're asking, well, what Jinhao pens is it similar to in terms of build and construction and value for the money? I would say that this is quite close, minus that number 6 nib, it is quite close to the X450 or the X750. So maybe if this style of pen, and they do have several other colors, I'll put a picture up to show you that. If this style is more your style than those other pens, then there are options. So not bad at all. And like I say, for a $5, $6 pen, which I believe is what I paid for it, then not bad at all. Now I did get that through eBay, and I did buy this back when shipping was still free from most of those Chinese sellers. That is not the case for a lot of them right now since the COVID. But there you go. That's the pen. That's the style. You can take a look at that. Now let's go to the writing test. All right, let's see how this Jinhao 500 writes. Should have mentioned before, it does post very securely. No issues there. I prefer to write with this particular pen, though, unposted. Very comfortable, balanced in the hand. This is the Jinhao 500. This is a fine nib, and it writes consistently with Jinhao fines. So if you have another Jinhao fine, especially their number 5 nib, which I find to be smooth, reliable in everything I've ever had it in, then you're going to like that. And this is, what is this? This is Noodler's. And this is, and I'm just going to write Liberty's Elysium Blue. That is and no association here, but I do like the store. This is a Goulet exclusive, the Liberty's Elysium Blue, and I like it. It's a good ink. Similar to that is the Bay State Blue, so whichever you can find, they're both great. I like them. Let's see. Let me show you this. In terms of smoothness, variation, of course, it's a typical steel nib, but in terms of dryness, that's not too bad, is it? So it's putting down a good little bit of ink for a number 5. And that tells me that this feed is probably good enough. If you wanted to put a stub or something like that in here, or a medium nib, whatever broad, you're probably, I bet you're good to go. What do you think? Okay, so it really does write well, and you can see that this ink, as long as we're talking about ink, has a little bit of color variation. You don't get a lot of line variation, but you get color variation, and I do like that. I don't think, and I've had this pen for months, I don't recall having any problems with it whatsoever. So I would say if you have experience with a Jinhao pen, then you kind of know what you're getting. In this one, in this particular part of their offerings, section of their offerings, which I would say would include the 450, the 650, and pens like that, it's going to write like those. If you have any experience with those, that's what you're going to get with that typical number 5 nib. Now those have a 6, and the fine in their number 6 is really, as far as I'm concerned, it's a medium. And my X750, and I know I'm not the only one who's had this experience, I hear comments, it writes almost like a broad sometimes, and it's a wet nib. Great pen, extremely smooth, that one. But this is not quite as smooth as that X750, it's a different nib. But it's as smooth. If you have a 992, the nib is going to write like a 992. It's the same nib. It's going to write like, what is the one? Their pen that is kind of like the Safari. It's the same nib as well. The 51A. They use this number 5 nib in a lot of their pens. And so you know going in a bit what you're going to get. So here what I would say about the pen. See how much I talked? It's smooth. It's reliable. And then I want to come back to something I said earlier. It's swappable. So if you decided, hey, I like the style of that pen, but I want a stub, get you a number 5 stub and put it in this pen. It's going to do fine. Play around, get a flex nib, maybe from FPR or something like that. And then you can play around with that as well. It's a great platform, I think, because the feed has good enough flow. The pen is really well made. Even though, as I said, this is just 2D, not 3D, you don't get the kind of chatoyancy and look you get in a Pelican pen. Okay, look at that and then look at this. Or even not just a Pelican, you wouldn't have the same. This is a New Moon, which is a resin pen and has depth and chatoyancy, and this one even a little bit of glitter. I'm going to review that one very, very soon. You don't get the same thing there either. But even this inexpensive Delight pen is 2.5, 3 times the price of this Jinhao. So, you expect a little bit of difference, and that's where the cost is cut. But it's not cut when it comes to a pen that actually writes well, is reliable, is well made. This pen is all those things. Now, I mentioned this one because of style, and that is it. There's really no comparison to that Pelican. They're both fountain pens. I guess there's that much. And then the style. I wouldn't compare them. I wouldn't cross-shop them. But in terms of inexpensive pens, fountain pens, maybe trying to introduce somebody to the hobby and you want to give them a gift pen, but you don't want to break the bank because you don't know if they'll even use it more than once, this would be a great option for that. All in all, I find it to be a reliable pen and a good pen and a pleasant pen to write with. And if you like heavier pens, then it's a bit heavier than any of those that I've compared it to. So there is that. Or, for example, here is the Wingsung 601A. Again, this pen is going to cost you 3 times the price of the Jinhao. Now, this is a totally different animal, and I'll review that one soon as well. But it, like that pen, comes with a number 5 nib. This is a piston filler, and it's made in that Parker 51 style. This is a bit nicer pen to me. It's a lighter pen though, a plastic pen where this is brass. Just pick what you like, but that gives you some idea. Let's do size comparisons. Chop myself from rambling on. That's the 601A, the Jinhao 500. What else have we got here? I showed you the Pelican, so there's no use showing you that. Here is the Delight, and this is that New Moon resin pen. This is, let's scoot those down. There we have the Carandash 849 fountain pen. And you may be saying, you didn't say that right. You said Carandash, and it's Carandash. No, Karandash is Russian for pencil. And the guy who founded the company was Russian. And he just gave you all a fancy looking fake French name so that it would sound a little bit snottier than it is. And then there's the Delight. So there's you a little bit of inside history. And then this is coming up soon as well, a Moon Man Marshmallow $5 pen. Now this is similar in price, but this is a demonstrator with a mini Fude nib. But size-wise, that gives you an idea. All right. Well, I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful Thanksgiving, whether you get to spend that with your family or whether you spend that simply with yourself. Still, may you be in good company either way. And may God bless you and give you a wonderful week.